The woman collapsed on Michigan Avenue like a marionette with cut strings. One moment she was walking, the next she was crumpling to the concrete, her swollen belly barely caught by her own trembling hands. Vincenzo Moretti watched it happen from across the street, and in the 3 seconds it took him to process what he was seeing, he recognized her face from the surveillance photos in his office. Ekaterina Volkov, Victor's wife, his enemy's property. The woman he had no business helping. He helped anyway. Enzo crossed the street in long strides, his expensive Italian shoes hitting the pavement with purpose. The November wind off Lake Michigan cut through the evening air, and he could see the woman shivering on the ground, her thin coat doing nothing against the cold. She was conscious, but barely, her pale eyes unfocused as she tried to push herself up. "Don't move," he said, dropping to one knee beside her. Up close, she was younger than he'd expected, maybe mid-20s, with ash blonde hair escaping from a braid, and skin so pale it looked translucent. 7 months pregnant at least. Maybe more. "I'm calling an ambulance." Niet," she muttered, the words slipping out in Russian before she seemed to catch herself. "No. No hospital. I have no money for... I'll handle it." Enzo pulled out his phone, but her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Her grip was weak, but desperate. "You are..." Her accent was thick, her English halting. "You are Moretti. I see your picture. My husband, Your husband isn't here." Enzo looked around the darkening street. No one was paying attention to them. Typical Chicago indifference. "When's the last time you ate?" She blinked at him, confusion clouding her features. This morning. Bread. I was walking to clinic in Westridge. Free clinic for..." She swayed, and Enzo caught her before she could fall again. "Clinic's 10 miles from here." He kept his voice even, but anger was already building in his chest. 10 miles. Pregnant. In November. "Why didn't you drive?" "No car. Victor, he take keys, and my phone, and..." She stopped, as if realizing she was saying too much to the wrong person. Her eyes, pale blue-gray like a winter sky, filled with fear. "Please, you cannot tell him you see me. He will be angry I leave house." Enzo made a decision that would change everything. "I'm taking you to Northwestern Memorial," he said, standing and lifting her with him. She weighed almost nothing despite the pregnancy. "You need a doctor. After that, we'll figure out the rest." "But Victor..." "Isn't here," Enzo repeated, his jaw tight. "And if he was, he'd be the one carrying you, not me." Dr. Castellano met them in the private wing of Northwestern Memorial, the section Enzo's family had been using for decades. The doctor took one look at Katya. She'd whispered her preferred name in the car, her accent making it sound like a prayer, and his expression went grim. "Severe dehydration, anemia, malnutrition," Castellano said an hour later, keeping his voice low outside her room. "Mr. Moretti, this woman is 7.5 months pregnant. She should be gaining weight. She's lost 15 pounds since her last documented prenatal visit 3 months ago." 3 months? Enzo's hands curled into fists. "No one's been taking her to appointments?" "Apparently not." Castellano pulled off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I'm legally obligated to report this kind of neglect, but she's terrified. Keeps saying her husband will be angry. I need you to tell me what I'm walking into here, Vincenzo." Enzo looked through the observation window into Katya's room. She was awake, one hand resting protectively on her belly, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. She looked lost, abandoned. "Her husband is Victor Volkov," Enzo said quietly. "Bratva. We've been in a territorial dispute for 6 months. "Christ!" Castellano put his glasses back on. "And you brought her here?" "She collapsed on the street. Was I supposed to leave her there?" "No, but..." The doctor studied him. "This is going to get complicated." "It already is." Enzo straightened his suit jacket. Keep her here tonight. Full workup. Whatever she needs. I'll handle Volkov. He didn't have to wait long. Viktor Volkov arrived 30 minutes later with 2 of his men, their heavy footsteps echoing down the hospital corridor. Enzo met them outside Katya's room, his own security materializing from the shadows. The hallway suddenly felt very small. Viktor was a stocky man in his mid-40s, with completely gray hair and pale blue eyes that held no warmth. He looked at Enzo like he was something stuck to his shoe. You have balls, Moretti, I give you that. Viktor's accent was thicker than Katya's, his English rough. Putting your hands on my wife. Your wife collapsed on Michigan Avenue, Enzo said evenly. When's the last time you saw her? None of your business. It became my business when I had to carry her off the street. Enzo kept his stance relaxed, but his men were ready. So were Viktor's. One wrong word and this hospital wing would become a war zone. She's malnourished, dehydrated, 7 months pregnant and walking 10 miles in the cold because she has no money, no phone, no car. Want to explain that? Viktor's jaw tightened. What I do with my wife is not your concern. It is when she almost died on a public street. Enzo took a step closer, his voice dropping. Here's what's going to happen. She stays here tonight, gets the care she needs. After that, she goes somewhere safe until she's healthy again. She goes home. With me. No, the word hung in the air like a blade. Look around, Viktor. You're in my hospital, with my doctor. Your wife is under my protection now. You want to take her? You'll have to go through me. For a long moment, neither man moved. Then Viktor smiled, and it was a terrible thing. You think you're a hero? He shook his head. She is my wife, my property. You keep her. You start war you cannot win. Try me. Viktor stared at him, recognition dawning in his eyes. This wasn't about territory anymore. This was about something more dangerous. Principle. And men who operated on principle were unpredictable. You will regret this, Viktor said finally. He turned to leave, then paused. She means nothing to me. You want used whore carrying my bastard? Keep her. But when I come for what's mine, Moretti, I won't just take territory. I'll take everything. He left, his men following. The hallway felt safer once they were gone, but the threat lingered like smoke. Enzo waited until he was sure they were out of the building before entering Katya's room. She was sitting up now, her hands twisted in the thin hospital blanket. She'd been crying, her eyes were red-rimmed, but she lifted her chin when she saw him. Why you help me? Her voice was quiet but direct. You are enemy of my husband. This make no sense. Enzo pulled a chair close to her bed and sat down, meeting her eyes. Your husband left you to die on the street, 7 months pregnant with his child, he said. That makes him less than a man. You? You're just a woman who needs help, and I don't abandon women, no matter whose wife they are. She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to find the lie in his words. When she didn't find one, something in her expression shifted. Not quite trust, but the possibility of it. In Russia, we have saying, she said softly. When wolf offers help to sheep, sheep should ask what wolf gets from deal. Smart saying. Enzo leaned back in his chair. I get peace of mind. Knowing someone who needed help got it. That's all. That is all? She didn't sound convinced. That's all. He stood, moving toward the door. Get some rest. Dr. Castellano will take care of you. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. Moretti. He turned back. She was looking at him with those pale eyes, and he saw something in them he hadn't expected. Hope, fragile and careful. Thank you. It was the first time anyone had thanked him for doing what should have been basic human decency. And that, more than anything Victor had said, made Enzo furious. The apartment Enzo arranged for Katya was in Gold Coast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. It was spacious, secure, and fully furnished. When he brought her there 2 days later, after Dr. Castellano had stabilized her and started her on prenatal vitamins and a proper nutrition plan, she stood in the doorway like she was afraid to enter. "This is too much," she whispered, her hand resting on her belly. The baby had been moving more now that she was properly hydrated, and Enzo had noticed she touched her stomach constantly, as if reassuring the child. Or herself. "It's safe," Enzo said, setting down the bags of clothes and supplies he'd had his assistant purchase. "Security on every floor. No one gets in without clearance. You'll be comfortable here." "Why?" She turned to him, and this time the question was different. Not suspicious, genuinely confused. "Why you do this? I am nothing to you. I am wife of man you hate. I carry his child. Why you care?" Enzo had asked himself the same question a dozen times over the past 2 days. The smart play would have been to leave her at the hospital and walk away. But every time he'd tried to convince himself of that, he remembered the way she'd looked on that sidewalk. Broken and abandoned, still trying to protect her baby even as she fell. "I have a code," he said finally. "I don't hurt women. I don't hurt kids. And I don't stand by when someone needs help. That's it. Nothing complicated." She searched his face, and he let her. He had nothing to hide. "In Russia, I know only 2 types of men," she said quietly. "Men who hit, and men who watch and do nothing. You are different?" The question mark at the end of that sentence made Enzo's chest tight. How damaged did someone have to be to question whether basic kindness was real? "I'm different," he confirmed. "And Katya? You don't have to question my help. I'm giving it freely. No strings, no expectations. When you're healthy and ready, you can decide what comes next. But right now, you need rest and safety. That's what this is." She nodded slowly, and something in her shoulders relaxed. Okay. Good." He moved toward the door. "My number's on the fridge. You need anything. Food, doctor, anything. You call. Day or night. Moretti." He paused. "My name. It is Ekaterina, but everyone call me Katya." "Katya," he repeated, and she smiled slightly at his pronunciation. "I'm Enzo." "Enzo." She tried the name out, her accent softening it. "Thank you. For seeing me. Victor. He look at me like I am furniture. You look at me like I am person." "You are a person," Enzo said firmly. "Don't let anyone make you forget that." After he left, he sat in his car for 10 minutes, staring at the building. He'd just put a target on his back for a woman he barely knew. His capos would call him crazy. His rivals would call it weakness. But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was her hand protectively on her belly as she collapsed, still trying to shield her baby even as her own body failed her. No, this wasn't weakness. This was the right thing to do. And if Victor wanted war over it, Enzo would give him war. The first week passed in careful routine. Enzo checked in daily, usually bringing food, at first Italian, until he realized she was hesitant about it. On the 3rd day, he brought pelmeni and blini from a Russian restaurant in West Ridge, and her eyes had filled with tears. "How you know?" she'd asked, her fingers trembling as she opened the containers. "I asked around. Found the best place." He watched her take a bite, saw the way her whole body seemed to relax. "You miss home?" "Da. Yes, very much." She wiped her eyes quickly. "I am in Chicago 5 years, but sometimes I feel like I am still not here. Not really. Victor, he keep me separate. I learn English watching television, practice with nurses at school. School. I finished nursing degree here. In Russia, I start but not finish. Victor, he promised I could finish in America. She smiled sadly. One promise he keep. Over the next few visits, the story came out in pieces. Her mother's death when she was 5, her father's descent into alcohol and violence, the years of survival, walking on eggshells, learning to make herself small and quiet. And then Victor, appearing in St. Petersburg like salvation. Older, established, promising safety. I think anyone is better than Papa, she told Enzo one evening, as they sat on the apartment's balcony, watching the sun set over the lake. I think, if he'd take me to America, I can have new life. I am so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were 21 and desperate. Enzo kept his hands wrapped around his coffee cup to stop himself from reaching for her. He lied to you. For 6 months, he is perfect gentleman. Bring flowers, take me to nice restaurants. My father, he is happy someone want to take me away. Her laugh was bitter. I not realize I am trading one prison for another until it's too late. What happened? We marry. Come to America. At first is okay. Not good, but okay. He is busy with business. I am busy with school. But then he start to be controlling. My phone, he check. My friends, he say no. Cannot call Russia. Cannot go places alone. And then... She touched her belly. Then this. And he is angry. Say baby will make me soft. Weak. Say I am useless now. You're not useless. Enzo set down his cup, turning to face her. You're growing a human being. That's the opposite of useless. She looked at him. Really looked at him. And Enzo saw the moment something shifted in her eyes. Not attraction. Not yet. Something more fundamental. Recognition. You are first man who say things like this to me, she whispered. First man who is kind. My whole life, men are dangerous, something to survive. But you? She trailed off, shaking her head. I not understand you. Nothing to understand. This is how men should act. Victor's the exception, not the rule. In my world, he is rule. She pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. I think maybe there is something wrong with me. That I cannot find good man. That I only attract bad ones. Katya. He waited until she met his eyes. There's nothing wrong with you. You've survived 26 years in situations that would have broken most people. You're still here. Still protecting your baby. Still hoping for better. That's not weakness. That's strength. She bit her lip, and a tear slid down her cheek. I want to believe you. Then believe me. That night, after Enzo left, he made a decision. He called his lawyer. I need you to look into divorce law for Russian nationals in Illinois, he said, specifically situations involving abuse and abandonment. There was a pause. Enzo, what are you doing? Giving someone options, he said. Just get me the information. 3 weeks after the collapse, Katya made her decision. Enzo had just brought dinner, Georgian food this time, khachapuri and khinkali, when she turned to him with an expression he'd never seen before. Determined, almost fierce. I want divorce, she said in English that was getting stronger every day. I want to leave Victor. For real. Not just hiding here. I want freedom. Enzo set down the food carefully. You're sure? I am sure. She stood up, one hand supporting her lower back. At 8 months now, she was all belly. But Dr. Castellano said she and the baby were thriving. You show me something these weeks, Enzo. You show me that men can be good, kind. That I deserve to be treated like person, not property. I spend 21 years thinking all men hurt. 5 years with Victor thinking is normal, but is not normal. I see this now. No, Enzo agreed quietly. It's not normal. I deserve better. My baby deserve better. She lifted her chin. I am choosing to leave. Not because of you, for me. Because I am worth more than this. Pride bloomed in Enzo's chest. Yes, you are. Will you help me? With papers? With lawyers? I'll help you with everything. He pulled out his phone. I'll call my attorney right now. We'll get this started. The call lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, Enzo turned to Katya with the news. He can file tomorrow. Illinois allows divorce on grounds of abandonment and mental cruelty. We have documentation from Dr. Castellano about your condition when I found you. That helps. He hesitated. Victor will have to be served papers. He's going to be furious. Let him be furious. Katya's voice was steady. I am done being afraid. I am done being owned. Good. Enzo smiled. Because you're about to be free. Victor received the divorce papers 3 days later. His response was immediate and violent. He showed up at the apartment building with 10 men demanding entry. Building security held them off while calling Enzo, who arrived with his own crew in under 15 minutes. They faced off in the marble lobby, both sides armed, both sides ready. You put her up to this, Victor snarled, his face red with rage. You steal my wife. You poison her mind. I didn't steal anything. Enzo kept his voice level, aware of the cameras recording everything. She made her choice. She wants out. Sign the papers. No. Victor spat the word. She is mine, my wife, my property. I will never sign. She can die married to me. That's not how this works. In Russia is exactly how this works. Victor stepped closer, his eyes cold. You think American law matters? You think paper makes her free? She will always be mine. When I take her back, and I will take her back, I will make sure she remembers who she belongs to. Enzo's hand moved to his weapon, but his head of security caught his eye and shook his head slightly. Not here. Not with this many witnesses. You're not taking her anywhere, Enzo said quietly. She's under my protection. You want her? You go through me. And Victor? I promise you won't enjoy how that ends. Victor laughed, harsh and sharp. You start war over used woman? Over child that is not even yours? You are fool, Moretti. And fools die young in our world. Is that a threat? His promise. Victor turned to leave, then looked back. You keep her. I refuse divorce. She stays married to me, lives under your roof like whore. How long before your own people question you, eh? Wonder why their boss fights for another man's wife. You lose respect, lose control. All for pregnant bitch who means nothing. She means something to me, Enzo heard himself say. The words hung in the air. Victor stared at him, recognition and calculation flickering across his face. Then he smiled slowly. Ah, I see. You want her for yourself. He nodded. This make more sense. But you cannot have her, Moretti. She is married. In eyes of law, in eyes of God, in eyes of her people. She is mine. Forever. He left laughing. Enzo stood in the lobby long after Victor's crew disappeared, his hands clenched into fists. His security chief touched his shoulder. Boss, he's right about one thing. The men are starting to talk. Ask questions. Let them talk. It's more than talk now. You're risking the family's reputation over a woman who's still legally married to your enemy. The man's voice was careful. I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm just saying. Be careful. This could cost you everything. I know what it could cost me. Enzo headed for the elevator. I'm doing it anyway. He found Katya in the apartment, standing by the windows with tears streaming down her face. She'd heard everything. The building's security had patched the lobby audio through to her. He will never let me go, she whispered. I am trapped. Always trapped. No. Enzo crossed the room to her. You're not trapped. You're separated. You live here now, not with him. That's what matters. But paper will come, eventually. Even if he fights it, Illinois law allows divorce without consent after 2 years of separation. He gently turned her to face him. I know 2 years sounds like forever. But Katya, you're already free where it counts. He doesn't control you anymore. You control your own life. But I am still his wife. Her voice broke. On paper, I am still his. On paper. Enzo cupped her face carefully, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. But in every way that matters, you're your own person. You're here because you chose it. You're safe because you chose it. That's freedom. She looked up at him, and Enzo saw something new in her eyes. Something warm and tentative and terrifying. Enzo, she breathed. These weeks with you, I feel things I never feel before. You make me feel safe. And more than safe. You make me feel alive. His heart stopped. Katya, I know I am still married. I know is wrong. But I cannot stop feeling. She pressed her lips together. You are a good man. First good man I ever know. And I am starting to think maybe I am not broken. Maybe I can feel things. Good things. For good man. Every instinct in Enzo screamed at him to close the distance between them. To kiss her, claim her, show her exactly how alive she made him feel too. But she was vulnerable. 8 months pregnant with another man's child. Legally married even if separated. I feel it too, he admitted quietly. But I won't rush you. We have time. How much time? Victor say 2 years. 2 years of being married to him on paper. 2 years of waiting. Her eyes searched his. You will wait 2 years for me? I'd wait 10. He meant it. Katya, I didn't expect this. Didn't expect you. But now that I've found you, I'm not letting go. Whether it takes 2 years or 20. I'll be here. She kissed him. It was impulsive and awkward. She had to rise on her toes, her belly making it difficult. But when her lips touched his, soft and uncertain and hopeful, Enzo felt something in his chest crack open. He kissed her back carefully, one hand cradling her face, the other supporting her back. He kept it gentle, respectful, aware of every reason they should stop. But God, he didn't want to stop. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Katya was crying again. But this time, she was smiling too. I am scared, she whispered. But I want this. Want you. Even if it's complicated. Even if we must wait. I choose you, Enzo. I choose this. Then we'll figure it out together. He kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her, soap and honey and something uniquely her. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. The next 3 months were both the best and worst of Enzo's life. The best because Katya was in it. She bloomed under safety and care, her English getting stronger, her smiles coming easier. They fell into a rhythm, dinners together, long talks on the balcony, doctor's appointments that Enzo refused to miss. He learned Russian phrases to make her laugh. She taught him how to make proper pelmeni. They watched Russian films with subtitles and American shows where she'd pause to ask about idioms. And slowly, carefully, they built something that looked like love. Their first real date happened 6 weeks after the kiss. Enzo rented out a private room at Osteria Lange, an Italian restaurant in Logan Square. He'd had his assistant research which dishes were safe for pregnancy, and he'd learned enough Russian toasts to make Katya laugh when he mangled the pronunciation. You are terrible at Russian, she'd said, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I'm terrible at a lot of things, but I'm trying. He reached across the table for her hand. For you, I'm trying." She'd laced their fingers together, and the gesture felt more intimate than any kiss. "I see that. I see you, Enzo. And I think I am falling in love with you." His heart had done something complicated in his chest. Just thinking about it? No. She'd smiled, soft and sure. "I am falling. Already falling. Is scary and wonderful, and I not know how to stop." "Don't stop." He'd squeezed her hand. "I'm falling too. Have been since the moment you looked at me like I was someone worth thanking for basic human decency." Their second date was simpler, but somehow more meaningful. Enzo took her to see an apartment he'd been preparing. Larger than the Gold Coast place, with 3 bedrooms and a nursery already set up. He'd spent weeks on the nursery, researching what babies needed, combining Italian and Russian touches, a mobile with hand-painted matryoshka dolls, Italian lullabies on vinyl next to Russian ones, books in both languages. Katya had walked into that nursery and burst into tears. "You did this?" she'd asked, running her fingers over the crib. "For my baby?" "For our baby." The words had slipped out before Enzo could stop them. "If you'll let me, I know she's not mine biologically. But Katya, I want to be her father. Want to be there for midnight feedings and diaper changes and first words. Want to teach her that men can be good, that she deserves respect and love and safety." He'd moved closer. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I'm all in. If you'll have me." She'd kissed him then, deep and hungry and full of promise. When they'd finally pulled apart, both breathless, she'd whispered, "Da, yes, she is yours. We are yours. If you want us." "I want you," he'd confirmed. "Both of you. Always." The worst part was everything else. Victor had declared war. Not open warfare, that would have brought too much attention, but a slow, vicious assault on Moretti territory. Protection rackets burned, shipments hijacked, allies pressured to switch sides. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and Enzo's capos were getting restless. "You need to end this," his consigliere had said during a tense meeting in Enzo's office. "Give back the woman. Make peace. The family can't sustain this." "I'm not giving her back." "Then kill Volkov. Start the war for real." "But this middle ground? It's killing us." Enzo had looked around the table at his most trusted men. "She chose to leave him. She's seeking divorce. I'm protecting someone who needs protection. That's what we do." "That's what you do," another capo had said. "The rest of us, we protect the family, and right now the family is bleeding for your principles." "Then consider this a new principle," Enzo had said quietly. "We don't stand by while women are abused. We don't negotiate with men who treat wives like property. And we don't abandon people who need help. That's who we are now. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave." No one had left, but the tension had remained. At night, Enzo would lie awake calculating costs. Every attack Victor launched cost money, reputation, blood. His family was loyal, but loyalty had limits. How long before someone decided Katya wasn't worth it? How long before someone took matters into their own hands? But then he'd remember the way she looked at him. Like he'd hung the moon. Like she'd never imagined someone could care about her without hurting her. And he'd know he'd made the right choice. Even if it cost him everything. The baby came on a Tuesday in February, 4 weeks before her due date. Katya had been living in the new apartment for a month, and Enzo had unofficially moved in. They hadn't discussed it, hadn't made it official, but his clothes had migrated to her closet, and his toothbrush lived in her bathroom, and some mornings he'd wake up with her curled against him, her head on his chest, and her hand in his. Those were his favorite mornings. He was making breakfast, trying to anyway, when she'd called out from the bedroom. "Enzo, I think it's time." Her water had broken. She was calm about it, calmer than Enzo, who'd nearly dropped the pan in his rush to get to her. By the time they reached Northwestern Memorial, her contractions were 5 minutes apart. Dr. Castellano met them in labor and delivery, taking one look at Enzo's face and smiling. "First time father nerves?" the doctor had asked. "Yes," Enzo had said at the same moment Katya said, "He is not." She'd stopped, looking at Enzo. He'd looked back at her. "I am," Enzo had said firmly. "I'm her father, in every way that matters." Katya had started crying then, but she'd been smiling too. Labor lasted 14 hours. Enzo stayed for all of it, holding Katya's hand, speaking to her in mangled Russian, letting her squeeze his fingers until he thought they might break. He'd never felt more helpless or more necessary. Every time she'd cried out in pain, he'd felt it in his own chest. Every time she'd looked at him with trust in her eyes, he'd felt 10 feet tall. "Я здесь," he'd whispered over and over. "I'm here. Я не ухожу. I'm not leaving. Я знаю," she'd whispered back through tears. "I know." The baby was born at 3:47 a.m., a tiny thing with a surprisingly loud cry and her mother's pale blue eyes. The nurse had cleaned her quickly and placed her in Katya's arms, and Enzo had watched his world realign around this moment. "She's perfect," Katya had breathed, counting fingers and toes. "Look, Enzo. Look at her." He'd looked, and then, for the first time in his adult life, Vincenzo Moretti had cried. "Can I hold her?" he'd asked, his voice rough. Katya had passed her over carefully, and Enzo had cradled the baby against his chest, this impossibly small person who was trusting him not to drop her. She'd stopped crying when he'd held her, her tiny hand wrapping around his finger with surprising strength. "Hey, little one," he'd whispered. "I'm Enzo. I'm going to be your papa, if that's okay with you. I'm going to teach you how to make pasta, and how to throw a punch, and how to know when someone deserves your trust. I'm going to show you what good men look like. And I promise, I swear on everything I am, I will never let anyone hurt you. Not ever." The baby had yawned, unimpressed by his vows, and Enzo had fallen completely in love. "What should we name her?" Katya had asked from the bed, her voice exhausted but happy. Enzo had looked down at the baby, then at Katya. "What was your mother's name?" "Anastasia." Katya's eyes had filled with tears. You would name her after my mama, if you want. She should have a name that means something, that connects her to her history." He'd brought the baby back to Katya. "Anastasia Moretti, if you'll let me give her my name." "Yes." Katya had taken the baby, holding her close. "Yes. Anastasia is perfect. And she is Moretti. She is ours." They'd sat like that for hours, the three of them in their own bubble. Enzo had thought about calling his capos, updating his security, checking on the territories. But none of that had seemed to matter compared to this. His girls, safe and whole, and his. Eventually, Dr. Castellano had returned, doing final checks on both Katya and Anastasia. Everything was healthy. Everyone was perfect. "You have a beautiful family," the doctor had said to Enzo on his way out. "Thank you." Enzo had meant it with every fiber of his being. "We really do." The first attack came 3 days after they brought Anastasia home. Victor hit a Moretti shipping warehouse on the south side, burning it to the ground. The message was clear. "I can still hurt you. I can still take everything." Enzo's capos convened an emergency meeting while Katya was home with the baby, exhausted from late-night feedings and healing from delivery. They met in the back room of a restaurant in Little Italy. Voices kept low, but tempers running hot. "This ends now," his underboss said, slamming his hand on the table. "He's escalating. Next time it might not be just a warehouse. It might be one of our people. Or worse." "What do you want me to do?" Enzo asked tiredly. He'd barely slept in days. Torn between helping Katya with the baby and managing the empire Victor was slowly dismantling. End him. We have 3 options. Negotiate, which we won't do. Capitulate, which we won't do. Or eliminate the threat. You mean kill him? I mean protect our family. Your family. The underboss leaned forward. Boss, I respect what you're doing. I do. But you can't protect that woman and baby if you're dead. And you can't protect them if the whole organization collapses. Something has to give. Enzo had known this moment was coming. Had dreaded it and prepared for it in equal measure. Set up a meeting with the Bratva Council, he said finally. Not Victor. His superiors. The ones who actually run Chicago. Why? Because Victor's gone rogue. He's burning through resources for a personal vendetta. Attacking a maid family over a woman. That's not business. That's emotion. Enzo stood. And emotion makes you sloppy. I'm betting his bosses are getting tired of it too. It took 2 days to arrange the meeting. When Enzo walked into the neutral restaurant in West Loop, he found 3 of the most powerful Russian mob bosses in Chicago waiting for him. They did not look happy. Moretti, the oldest one said, his accent thick. You request this meeting. Talk. Enzo sat down, keeping his hands visible on the table. Viktor Volkov is destabilizing both our operations. He's attacked 6 of my locations in 3 months over a personal grievance. I assume he's using your resources to do it. His wife, another one said. You steal his wife. This is personal, Da, but is also disrespect. In our culture. In your culture, a man protects what's his, Enzo interrupted. Victor left his pregnant wife to die on the street. I found her collapsed, malnourished, afraid. I helped her. She chose to leave him. That's not theft. That's consequence. The 3 men exchanged looks. The oldest spoke again. We hear rumors that Volkov is careless with his woman, that he abandoned her often. That child may not survive because he does not care. He leaned back in his chair. We also hear you are raising his daughter. This is true? Yes, with Katya's permission. The baby is mine in every way that matters. And his wife, she is yours too. She's her own person, but yes, she's mine. And I'm hers. Another pause. Then the oldest one smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. You have balls, I give you this, but you put us in difficult position. If we do nothing, we look weak. Let Italian take Russian wife with no consequence. But if we back Volkov, we waste resources on man who cannot even keep his own woman. What you suggest. This was the gamble. Enzo pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. 3 weeks ago, I received this from an FBI contact. Victor's been trafficking girls through the ports. Underage girls. From Russia and Ukraine. Selling them to brothels across the Midwest. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. This is serious accusation, the oldest one said quietly. It's documented. Photos, testimonies, transaction records. Enzo kept his voice level. I'm guessing you don't know about this, because trafficking underage girls, that's the kind of thing that brings federal attention to everyone. The kind of thing that gets entire organizations dismantled. The 3 men opened the folder. Enzo watched their faces go from skeptical to furious. In the Russian mob, there were lines you didn't cross. And human trafficking, especially children, was a bright red one. Where you get this? The oldest one asked. Does it matter? It's real. Victor's been operating outside your authority, making enemies, and now risking everyone with federal crimes. Enzo leaned forward. I'm not asking you to help me. I'm telling you that you have a problem. How you solve it is up to you. The meeting ended, 10 minutes later. Enzo left without knowing what they'd decide. But he'd planted the seed. 3 days later, Viktor Volkov disappeared. The rumors said the Bratva Council had summoned him for a discussion. The rumors said he'd been given a choice: face federal charges or face Russian justice. The rumors said he'd chosen neither and tried to run. The rumors said he didn't get far. Officially, Viktor Volkov's body was found in the Chicago River 2 weeks later. Officially, it was ruled a mob hit. No suspects. Case closed. Unofficially, everyone knew the Bratva had handled their own problem. When Enzo brought the news to Katya, she'd been sitting in the nursery, rocking Anastasia to sleep. She'd looked up at him with those pale blue eyes, and he'd seen the moment she understood. "He is dead?" she'd whispered in Russian. "Yes." She'd looked down at the baby in her arms, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I should feel something, da? Sad? Guilty? But I feel only relief. Is this wrong?" "No." Enzo had knelt beside the rocking chair, taking her free hand. "It's not wrong. He hurt you for 5 years. You get to feel however you feel about his death." "I feel free," she'd admitted. "For first time in my life, I am truly free. No father, no husband, just me and her and you." "And me," Enzo had confirmed. "Always me." The divorce. Automatic now. Illinois law. Widow status supersedes everything else. You're legally single again. He'd squeezed her hand. "Katya, I know this is fast. I know you need time. But when you're ready, months from now, years from now, whenever, I want to marry you. Want to make this official. Want to be Anastasia's legal father and your legal husband and build a life that looks nothing like the one you escaped." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she'd smiled. "Ask me again in 6 months," she'd said softly. "When baby is older. When I am healed. When we have time to be sure this is real and not just trauma and gratitude and relief. I can wait 6 months." "Good." She'd leaned down and kissed him, soft and sweet. "Because answer will be yes. But I want to say yes when I am strong. When I am choosing you not because I need you, but because I want you. You understand?" "I understand." He'd kissed her back. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." 6 months turned into 7, and then 8. Katya healed slowly, but steadily. She started therapy, working through 26 years of trauma with a psychologist who specialized in abuse survivors. She started going to a Russian community center in West Ridge, making friends, building a support network. She went back to work part-time at a community clinic, using her nursing skills to help immigrants who reminded her of herself, afraid, alone, trying to build new lives. Anastasia grew from a tiny newborn into a chunky, happy baby who smiled at everyone and had her mother's eyes and Enzo's temperament. She was stubborn and curious and absolutely fearless. Enzo adored her. He officially adopted her when she was 6 months old. The paperwork was straightforward since Viktor was dead, and Katya consented. When the judge had asked if he understood the lifelong commitment he was making, Enzo had looked at the baby in his arms and said, "Your Honor, I made this commitment the day she was born. This is just making it legal." They'd walked out of the courthouse as a family. Anastasia Moretti, officially and completely. On a Saturday in October, Enzo took Katya to dinner at the same Italian restaurant where they'd had their first date. They talked and laughed and shared tiramisu, and it felt like coming home. When they got back to the apartment, their apartment now, shared and lived in and full of baby toys and Russian novels and Italian suits, Enzo had pulled her onto the balcony overlooking the lake. 8 months, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Are you strong yet?" She'd laughed, leaning back against him. "I am strong. I am healed. I am choosing this. Choosing you. Because I want to, not because I need to." "Good." He'd pulled out the ring he'd been carrying for 3 months, waiting for the right moment. It was simple. White gold with a small diamond, nothing flashy. Katya didn't need flashy. She needed real. He'd turned her to face him and dropped to one knee. "Ekaterina Sokolova," he'd said in careful Russian. "Will you marry me?" She'd started crying immediately, which he took as a good sign. "Da, yes, 1,000 times yes." He'd slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. When they'd finally pulled apart, both breathless, she'd cupped his face in her hands. "Thank you," she'd whispered, "for seeing me, for saving me, for showing me what love looks like." "Thank you," he'd replied, "for teaching me that some things are worth more than territory or respect or safety. You and Anastasia, you're worth everything." They'd gotten married 3 months later, in a small ceremony at a Russian Orthodox church in West Ridge. Enzo's family had filled one side of the aisle, their suits and their scars, and their loyalty a stark reminder of the world he came from. Katya's friends from the community center had filled the other side, nurses and immigrants and survivors, a reminder of the world she was building. Anastasia had been the flower girl, carried down the aisle by Enzo's underboss, wearing a white dress and drooling cheerfully on everything. When the priest had asked if anyone objected, there'd been a moment of perfect silence. No Victor to interrupt, no threats to overshadow, just two people choosing each other freely. Enzo had said his vows in Russian and English. Katya had done the same. They'd exchanged rings and kissed as husband and wife, and the whole church had erupted in cheers. At the reception, Enzo's capos had toasted to the bride and groom. The underboss had raised his glass and said, "Boss, you taught us something these past 2 years. You taught us that honor isn't just about territory or respect. It's about protecting the people who can't protect themselves, about standing up when it costs you, about choosing what's right even when it's hard. We're proud to follow you." Enzo had felt something in his chest expand. This was what he'd been building. Not just an organization, but a family. One that looked out for each other. One that had lines they wouldn't cross. One that was worth fighting for. Late that night, after all the guests had left and Anastasia was asleep in her crib, Enzo and Katya had slow danced in their living room to music only they could hear. "I love you," she'd whispered against his chest. "I love this life we build. I love that our daughter will grow up knowing she is safe, that she will never wonder if man can be good, because she will have you." "I love you too," Enzo had replied. "And I promise, both of you, I will spend every day proving that you can trust me, that you're safe with me, that love doesn't have to hurt." She'd pulled back to look at him, and in her eyes he'd seen everything they'd survived to get here. The pain and the fear and the slow, careful healing. The choice to trust again. The courage to love again. "It doesn't hurt," she'd confirmed. "With you, it feels like coming home." They'd made love that night, slow and reverent and full of promise. Afterward, tangled together in their bed, Enzo had traced patterns on her back and thought about the path that had brought them here. The woman collapsed on Michigan Avenue. The decision to help when logic said, "Walk away." The war that had nearly cost him everything. Worth it. All of it worth it. Because now he had this. A wife who looked at him like he'd hung the stars. A daughter who smiled when she saw him. A family built on choice and healing, and the slow, steady work of loving someone well. In the next room, Anastasia started to fuss. Katya moved to get up, but Enzo stopped her. "I've got her," he said, kissing her temple. "Rest." He padded into the nursery and picked up his daughter, who immediately stopped crying and grabbed his finger. He settled into the rocking chair, holding her close. "Hey, moya doch," he whispered in terrible Russian. "My daughter. Can't sleep?" She yawned and snuggled into his chest, and Enzo felt that familiar tightness in his throat. This tiny person trusted him completely, depended on him, loved him with the uncomplicated certainty only children possess. He would spend the rest of his life earning that trust. "I'm going to tell you something important," he said softly, rocking her gently. "You're going to grow up in a complicated world. You're going to have questions about where you came from and who your biological father was. And when you're old enough, I'll answer those questions honestly. But I need you to know, need you to really understand, that biology doesn't make family. Choice makes family. Love makes family. And I chose you before you were even born. I loved you the second I held you. You are mine, Anastasia, in every way that matters." The baby made a small sound, possibly agreement, possibly gas. Enzo smiled. "Your mama is the bravest person I know," he continued. "She survived things that would have broken most people. She chose to leave a bad situation. She chose to build a new life. She chose me. And those choices, those acts of courage, they're what made you possible. You come from strength, little one. Don't ever forget that." He rocked her until she fell back asleep, then sat there a while longer, just holding her. These were his favorite moments. The quiet ones. The ones where it was just him and his daughter, and the weight of his vows settling into his bones. Eventually, he put her back in her crib and returned to bed, where Katya was half asleep. "Is she okay?" Katya murmured. "Perfect." Enzo pulled her close. "Both my girls are perfect." She smiled against his chest. "I never think I have this. Family, safety, love that doesn't hurt. I think maybe I am not meant for happiness. But you show me I am wrong." "You were always meant for happiness," Enzo said firmly. "You just had to survive long enough to find it." "Duh," she agreed. "And I did. I survive. And now I am here. With you. With her. Building life I choose. Is miracle. Not a miracle. Just what you deserve." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, safe and whole and home. 3 years later, on Anastasia's 3rd birthday, Enzo stood in their backyard watching his daughter chase butterflies in a pink tutu while Katya laughed and took photos. The house in Lincoln Park was theirs now, purchased legally, no mob money. Enzo had legitimized half his operations, keeping enough of the old world to maintain respect, but leaving enough of the darkness behind to give his family safety. He was still boss of the Moretti family, still made hard decisions, still lived in a world of violence and territory and ancient codes. But he came home to this, to birthday parties and butterfly hunts, and a wife who kissed him hello like he was her favorite part of the day. It was more than enough. Katya came to stand beside him, slipping her hand into his. She was different now than the woman who'd collapsed on Michigan Avenue, confident, healthy, genuinely happy. But sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, he'd catch shadows in her eyes. Memories of what was. He'd spend the rest of his life chasing those shadows away. "What you think about?" she asked, leaning her head on his shoulder. "About how lucky I am. Is not luck, is choice." She squeezed his hand. "You choose to help when you could walk away. You choose to fight when you could give up. You choose us when it would be easier to choose empire. Best choice I ever made." "Duh," she smiled. "Best choice for me, too." Anastasia ran over, breathless and covered in grass stains. "Papa! Mama! I catch butterfly! Come see!" She grabbed both their hands and dragged them across the yard to where a monarch butterfly sat on a flower. They crouched down together, the 3 of them, and Enzo thought about improbable journeys and unlikely transformations. He'd been taught all his life that loyalty meant family above all else, that blood was sacred, that you protected your own and destroyed your enemies. But Katya had taught him something different. She'd taught him that family was built, not born. That loyalty meant standing up even when it cost you. that sometimes the most important thing you could do was help someone who had no claim on you except their humanity. She'd taught him that love was a choice, made every day, in 1,000 small ways, and he would keep choosing it, keep choosing them, for as long as he lived. "Papa?" Anastasia tugged his sleeve. "Why you crying?" He hadn't realized he was. He wiped his eyes quickly, smiling at his daughter. "Happy tears, little one. Just very happy tears." She considered this, then hugged him fiercely around the neck. "I make you happy?" "The happiest," he confirmed, holding her close. "You and your mama make me the happiest man alive." "Good." She pulled back, satisfied. "Now come play. Is my birthday." She ran off, and Enzo stood, pulling Katya up with him. They watched their daughter spin in circles, arms spread wide, laughing at nothing and everything. "We give her good life, da," Katya said quietly. "She will never know what we survived to get here." "She'll know enough," Enzo replied. "When she's older, we'll tell her our story, the real one, so she understands how strong her mother is, and so she knows that the right person will fight for her, that she should never settle for less." "You are right person," Katya said, "for both of us. My right person. And you're mine." They kissed, soft and sweet, while their daughter played and the sun set over Chicago, and somewhere in the distance, Enzo's phone buzzed with business he'd deal with tomorrow. But for now, for this moment, there was only this: his family, his choice, his life, the one he'd fought for, the one he'd won. If you loved this story of second chances and finding love in the darkest places, subscribe to the channel for more dark mafia romance stories. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it when Enzo first helped Katya, their first kiss, or the moment he became Anastasia's father? Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, remember, real love is worth fighting for. Спасибо за просмотр. Thank you for listening.